some more revealing information to share with you.
Rudolf Steiner, whose teachings led to anthroposophical medicine, biodynamic farming, and the Waldorf School, said that the heart is a seven-sided regular form that sits in an imaginary box in the chest. Regular means that all seven sides are identical. Plato described five Platonic solids, and Steiner said there was a sixth one. He also said that the heart is not a pump. This fantastic claim was vindicated by Frank Chester, who figured out how to design a seven-sided regular form. This sixth Platonic solid is now called the chestahedron, and it fits perfectly inside a cube at an angle of 36 degrees off-center to the left, the exact same angle that the heart sits in the chest. When submerged in water and spun, two counter-rotating vortices are formed. Recent scientific studies have shown that these two vortices facilitate the closing of the valves, and when the vortices don't form properly, blood clots will appear. The man who unfolded 1,000 hearts, Paco Torrent Guasp, discovered that the heart is a single muscular band folded over itself in a spiraling pattern. The heart itself is a vortex of tissue. It is not a pump, it is a vortex machine. For centuries, it was believed that matter can only exist in three states, such as water, which can exist as liquid, ice, and vapor. Human cells are 70% water, but most of this water is not in any of these three states. We have recently learned that with water, there is a fourth state. This fourth state is called the plasma state, gel phase, exclusion zone, or structured water.
Structured water, and water is a transducer of electricity. I always recommend my clients to structure their water before they drink it because then it's more bioavailable.
And this is what pushes your blood.
Oh, and if you're wondering what I would recommend for that, look up Crystal Energy by Dr. Patrick Flanagan.
Through the entire cardiovascular system. Fueled by infrared energy from its environment, the water in our body becomes an electrical propulsion system. A certain percentage of the water in our body becomes structured water, and the rest remains normal liquid water, or bulk water. The structured water becomes negatively charged and forms the gelatinous outer walls of our capillaries, veins, and arteries. These negatively charged outer walls continuously propel the positively charged bulk water within, carrying the blood with it. This propulsion system will run indefinitely, so long as it stays charged. And the way you charge it is with the Earth's electromagnetic field, infrared energy, and positive thought. The work of Dr. Masaru Emoto has scientifically demonstrated that water exposed to loving human words and thoughts is transformed into its natural hexagonal shape. It becomes structured at a molecular level based on our positive intention. This new model shows that it is the blood that pumps the heart, not the other way around. And in order to keep the flow strong and healthy, our best medicine is to connect to the earth, get sunlight, love ourselves, and love one another with physical touch.
And that the heart is not a pump, it's a vortice. And the electrical charge comes from the blood itself and from the structuredness of the blood and the water within. Interesting, right? Now, again, the body is bioelectric. The heart is bioelectric. So let's move on from there. So in a book volume, I'm actually reading a 2-volume set called The Second Coming of Christ by Paramahansa Yogananda. And in the book, it's interesting to note here, right after he says, that which comes out of the heart of man declares and affects him rather than that which merely goes into his brain as knowledge. And here's the reference to this, which I found very interesting to find that a lot of good, interesting references in his book having to do with science. But let me read this to you. Our research and that of others indicate that the heart is far more than a simple pump. The heart is, in fact, a highly complex, self-organized information processing center. Report Roland McCready, I think you pronounced that right, PhD, and his associates in science of the heart, exploring the role of the heart in human performance, Boulder Creek, California, Institute of Heart Math. Again, seeing this reference to corroborate with the heart is not a pump and its electromagnetic effects. Traditionally, the study of communication pathways between the head and heart has been approached from a rather one-sided perspective, with scientists focusing primarily on the heart's response to the brain's commands. However, we have now learned that communication between the heart and brain is actually a dynamic, ongoing two-way dialogue, with each organ continuously influencing the other's function. Research has shown that the heart communicates to the brain in four major ways: neurologically, through the transmission of nerve impulses; biochemically, via hormones and neurotransmitters; biophysically, through pressure waves; and energetically, through electromagnetic field interactions. Communication along all these conduits significantly affect the brain's activity. Neurocardiologists have found that 60 to 65% of the cells of the heart are actually neural cells, not muscle cells, as was previously believed. Explains child development expert Joseph Chilton Pierce in a 1999 interview in Journal of Family Life, Volume 5, Number 1. They are identical to the neural cells in the brain, operating through the same connecting links called ganglia, with the same axonal and dendritic connections that take place in the brain, as well as through the very same kind of neurotransmitters found in the brain. Quite literally, in other words, there is a brain in the heart whose ganglia are linked to every major organ in the body, to the entire muscle spindle system, that uniquely enables humans to express their emotions. Our emotional, cognitive brain has direct, unmediated neural connections with the heart, Pierce reports. He explains that the brain makes a qualitative evaluation of our experiences of this world and sends that information instant by instant down to the heart. In return, the heart exhorts the brain to make the appropriate response. In other words, the response that the heart makes affects the entire human system. Thus, these scientists conclude, though the brain supplies the heart with perception, it is the heart responding to the reports from the brain that send positive or negative instructions back to the emotional reactive centers in the brain, which would be your the limbic part of your brain, and through hormones released into the bloodstream to the entire body. So says the publisher, the person that helped publish the works of Paramahansa Yogananda. So let's go back here. That which comes out of the heart of man declares and affects him, rather than that which merely goes into his brain as knowledge. And to take it one step further, where they mention the ganglia that's in the brain and in the heart, we also have ganglia in the gut, and that's why the gut is the second brain. Light microscopy of nerve cells or neurons clusters to form ganglion. These nerves are part of the vast interconnected network found in the muscle walls of the gut. Think twice how the gut second brain influences mood and well-being. And the gut is located in the lower center of the trunk, which is tied to the solar plexus, which is your willpower. So as shown in this picture of the 7 chakras, the third chakra, the yellow one, is where the solar plexus resides, which really handles our pancreas, digestion, assimilation, muscles, personal power, and self-will. Each chakra influences the body in a unique physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual ways. This is because each energy organ vibrates at its own frequency and spins at its own particular velocity. And I'll be getting into more of this coming up in episode 8. What a wonderful thing to note about this electrical coherence between the heart and the brain. Let's hear what Dr. Greg Braden has to say about heart-brain coherence.
Cells in our bodies that determine our health respond to the chemistry released by the brain. And the chemistry released by the brain is triggered from the feelings in the human heart. What we know is that every moment of every day, there's a conversation between our heart and our brain. It's a two-way conversation. Our heart is sending signals to the brain, and based upon those signals, the brain releases chemistry into the body. When we feel frightened, angry, hate, jealousy, rage, frustration, that sends a very jagged, irregular signal to the brain, and it releases stress chemistry, which is good for a moment, but it's not good 24/7. There's an organization called the Institute of Heart Math. They're based in Northern California, and they are pioneers in uncovering the deepest mysteries of the human heart in ways that conventional science does not. So conventional science says the heart pumps blood. Well, you can make a machine to do that, but what else does our heart do? So the Institute of Heart Math, to answer your question, has documented the information. You can actually see the information between the heart and the brain when we feel feelings of well-being, appreciation, gratitude, compassion, care. Then the signal is a very smooth, rhythmic signal to our brain, and our brain says, the world is safe, so I don't need the stress chemistry. So it begins to release the anti-aging hormones in our bodies, and powerful immune response is created within our bodies in the presence of this smooth signal. The connection is called coherence, heart-brain coherence.
Now it's interesting, the coherence is brought on by a signal. The signal he's referring to here, when we're thinking about love or compassion, is a thought, which is an energy field. And what I'm going to be going into when I talk about the biofield houses 80% of your immune system. Your immune system is a thinking, living system. Some have called a circulating nervous system. So as you're experiencing the touch, the eye contact, and the loving words of someone, it's hitting your field, changing your chemistry, and having an effect on your heart. And then that'll change the coherence between your heart and brain.
And optimum coherence now has been measured. It's a very low frequency, 0.10 hertz. That is the language that whales communicate in the oceans. It's a very low frequency. So if we can create the feelings in our hearts, for example, of 0.10 hertz, that is an optimum connection between our heart and our brain. And that begins releasing the healing chemistry from our brain into the cells of our bodies. And this has been documented. It reduces high blood pressure, reduces vascular plaque, reduces the chances for stroke. When we are able to feel those kinds of feelings sustained over long periods of time, the immune system increases. The DHEA level is the precursor to all hormones in the body. Every hormone must have the DHEA. DHEA increases 100% from only 3 minutes of feeling the feelings, appreciation, gratitude, compassion, love. while the stress chemistry decreases 23% in the same time. And all we're doing is having a feeling. Those are the qualities that the body needs to begin to heal itself. So our bodies are designed to heal themselves. And our own science now has shown every organ in every cell, every organ in our body has now been documented with the potential to heal itself, even organs we were told could not heal themselves.
Now, isn't that interesting in lieu of what we just seen?
Regenerative Manufacturing Institute, also known as ARMI, will receive a grant worth nearly $44 million to help advance biofabrication science happening in the Queen City. The company produces human organs, cells, and tissues.
And again, tying this in with the electromagnetic pollution and the disruptors and the bio-cyber interface and all the other negative things bioelectrically. Look at what we're doing to our body's harmonics, to our body's coherence. Remember, we have this ability to heal.
Brain tissue, heart tissue, spinal cord tissue, pancreatic tissue, all has been documented at regeneration and healing under the right conditions and the right environment. So the thinking of science is that the environment must come from a pill or a machine. Our most cherished traditions always told us that we had the ability to do this for ourselves, but science didn't really understand that. And now science is beginning to validate that we may create within our own bodies through the power of emotion, heart-based emotion, the very experiences that begin healing the human body. When our body has an illness or disease, we lose the faith in our body. We lose trust. And we must work to overcome that. And I think it's the greatest lesson for any of us to learn, because once we discover that we have that ability, we feel differently about life and our friends and our families. And we feel differently about our relationship to the world. So I can look at you and say, what I did was all the things that I learned to do to create the coherence, the heart-brain coherence, to heal the anger, to heal the hurt, heal the frustration, create the coherence between my heart and my brain to the best of my ability throughout the day. I did it as many times as I could.
I so much concur with this. And again, why do I say that? When we look at my 4 principles, where does it all start? How we handle stress. I get my clients to breathe correctly, to think correctly, to sleep correctly, to eat correctly, and then they move correctly.